The wedding that changed everything. The summer evening sparkled with golden light as guests gathered at the riverside mansion for what everyone called the wedding of the year. Crystal chandeliers hung from white tents, and roses cascaded down marble pillars. Every detail screamed perfection and luxury. Cars worth more than houses lined the circular driveway, and women in designer gowns floated across the manicured lawns like elegant butterflies at table 7. Far from the main action sat Julian Sterling. At 29, he had already built a technology empire worth billions. His company, Sterling Innovations, had revolutionized how people connected through digital platforms. His sharp jawline and piercing green eyes had graced magazine covers countless times. Tonight, his perfectly tailored midnight blue tuxedo made him look like he belonged in a Hollywood movie. But money could, not by what Julian desperately wanted. Real connection. Genuine friendship. True love, the isolation of success. Julian checked his expensive watch for the 10th time in an hour. His cousin Robert, the groom, had begged him to attend this celebration. Family meant everything to Robert, and Julian was his only remaining relative after their grandfather passed away last year. So here Julian sat, surrounded by hundreds of people yet feeling completely alone. The other guests whispered behind their champagne glasses. Some pointed in his direction, their eyes filled with curiosity and judgment. Julian was used to being the center of attention, but not the kind he wanted. People saw his bank account before they saw his heart. They wanted business deals, not real friendship. They craved his money, not his company. A group of young women at the next table spoke loudly enough for Julian to hear every word. Their voices carried across the soft music and gentle conversation. "Look at Julian Sterling over there," said a blonde, a woman in a sparkling silver dress. "He looks so sad and lonely. All that money, but no one to share it with." Her brunette friend laughed unkindly. "I heard his last girlfriend left him for his best friend. She said he was too cold, too focused on work. Maybe money really cannot buy happiness." The third woman, wearing emerald green, shook her head dramatically. "What a waste. He is incredibly handsome, but they say he has no heart. Just a calculator where his emotions should be." Julian gripped his glass of whiskey tighter, his knuckles turning white. These comments hurt more than any business rival ever could. He had heard similar things countless times, but tonight they stung particularly deep. Maybe because tonight he felt more isolated than ever before. The mysterious approach that evening dragged on with forced smiles and polite conversation. Julian considered leaving early, making some excuse about urgent business matters. Then he saw her walking toward his table. And his world suddenly shifted. She moved with quiet confidence through the crowd, her deep burgundy dress flowing like liquid silk around her curves. Her long black hair fell in gentle waves over one shoulder, and her warm brown eyes seemed to hold secrets and stories. She was not the most conventionally beautiful woman at the wedding, but something about her drew Julian like a magnet. "Excuse me?" she said softly, stopping beside his chair. Her voice carried a slight accent that Julian could not immediately place. "I could not help but notice you sitting alone. Mind if I join you for a moment?" Julian looked up, surprised by her boldness. Most people were too intimidated to approach him directly. "I am afraid you might find my company rather boring," he replied honestly. "I am not exactly the life of the party tonight," the woman smiled. Julian felt something warm spread through his chest. "Sometimes the most interesting conversations happen away from the party," she said. "May I?" She gestured to the empty chair beside him. "Please." Julian stood to pull out her chair, his mother's lessons in manners automatically kicking in. "I am Julian Sterling." "Elena Martinez," she replied, settling gracefully into the seat. "And I know exactly who you are." The dance that started everything. Elena turned in her chair to face Julian completely. "I have been watching you for the past hour," she admitted, with refreshing honesty. "You look like a man who needs rescuing from his own thoughts." Julian raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite himself. "And you think you are qualified to provide such a rescue?" "Well," Elena said with a mischievous grin, "I did just walk across this entire reception to talk to a complete stranger. That takes either courage or complete insanity." Either way, it might be exactly what you need right now. Before Julian could respond, the band began playing a slow, romantic song. Couples moved onto the dance floor, swaying together under the twinkling lights. Elena stood and extended her hand toward Julian. "Dance with me," she said simply. It was not a question, but a gentle command. Julian hesitated. "I should warn you, I am not much of a dancer. Business meetings do not usually involve waltzing." Elena laughed, a sound like silver bells in the wind. "Lucky for you, this is not a business meeting. Come on, trust me." Against his better judgment, Julian took her hand and allowed her to lead him onto the dance floor. The moment his arms encircled her waist, something electric passed between them. Elena fit perfectly against him, as if they had been designed to dance together. "See?" Elena whispered as they moved slowly to the music. "You are a much better dancer than you think." Julian found himself relaxing for the first time all evening. "You have not seen my corporate presentation style? Much less graceful than this." "I doubt that," Elena replied, looking up into his eyes. "I suspect you are graceful at everything you do. You just do not give yourself enough credit." Secrets and confessions as they danced. Julian discovered that talking to Elena felt as natural as breathing. She asked him questions no one else bothered to ask. Not about his companies or his money, but about his dreams, his fears, his hopes for the future. "What do you do when you are not building business empires?" Elena asked as they swayed together. Julian had to think about that question. "Honestly, I work. I've been working since I was 16 years old. Sometimes I forget there is supposed to be life outside the office." "That sounds lonely," Elena said with genuine sympathy. "It is," Julian admitted, surprising himself with his honesty. "But it is also safe. Work does not break your heart or betray your trust. Numbers do not lie or leave you for someone else." Elena was quiet for a moment, absorbing his words. "I understand that feeling," she said finally. "I have been hurt before too. Sometimes building walls feels easier than risking more pain." "What do you do?" Julian asked, realizing he had been talking about himself the entire time. "When you are not rescuing lonely billionaires at weddings?" Elena smiled sadly. "I run an art gallery downtown, or I try to anyway. It is not exactly a profitable business, but it is my passion. I love helping unknown artists find their voice and connect with people who appreciate their work." "That sounds wonderful," Julian said, and he meant it. "Art has the power to move people in ways that technology never can. You really think so?" Elena asked, her eyes lighting up with excitement. "Most people think it is a waste of time and money. Those people do not understand true value," Julian replied firmly. "Beauty and creativity are worth more than any stock portfolio." The pretend game. As the evening progressed, Elena and Julian found themselves creating an elaborate story about their relationship. It started as a game, a way to deflect the curious stares and whispered comments from other guests. "How long have we been dating?" Elena whispered as they took a break from dancing. Julian pretended to consider seriously. 6 months, he decided. Long enough to be serious, but new enough that not everyone knows about you yet. "Perfect," Elena agreed. "And how did we meet?" "You tell me," Julian said, enjoying this fantasy more than he expected. Elena grinned mischievously. "You came to my gallery for a business event. You were supposed to be there for 30 minutes, but you stayed for 3 hours talking to me about art and life. You asked me to dinner before you left." "I like that story," Julian said. "It makes me sound romantic instead of just rich." "You are romantic," Elena said softly. "You just hide it behind business suits and stock reports." Their pretend relationship felt surprisingly real as the night went on. When other guests approached them, Elena slipped easily into the role of Julian's girlfriend. She knew exactly what to say, how to act, when to touch his arm, or laugh at his jokes. It felt natural and right in a way that confused and thrilled Julian. The magic hour's midnight approached. The wedding reception began winding down. Older guests said their goodbyes, and the party moved to a more intimate setting near the garden fountain. Julian and Elena found themselves sitting on a stone bench, sharing a piece of wedding cake and talking quietly under the stars. "This has been the best evening I've had in years," Julian confessed. I almost did not come tonight. I was dreading every minute of it. I am glad you changed your mind, Elena said. I almost did not come either. My friend practically forced me to be her +1 because she did not want to face all these wealthy people alone. We make quite a pair, Julian observed. Two reluctant wedding guests who found each other. Elena looked at him seriously. Julian, I need to tell you something. Tonight has been magical, but I do not want you to think I am like all those other women who chase after your money. I had no idea who you were when I walked over to your table. I just saw a man who looked sad and alone. Julian felt his heart skip a beat. You really did not know? Not until you introduced yourself, Elena confirmed. I do not follow business news or read gossip magazines. I just saw someone who needed a friend. In that moment, Julian fell a little bit in love with Elena Martinez. Not because she was beautiful, though she was. Not because she was charming, though she certainly was that too. But because she had seen him as just a man, not a bank account or a business opportunity. The bittersweet goodbye too soon. The evening came to an end. Elena's friend appeared at the garden entrance, keys in hand and ready to leave. Reality crashed back down on both Julian and Elena like cold water. I should go, Elena said reluctantly. Standing from the bench, Julian stood too, not wanting this perfect night to end. Elena, I would like to see you again. Would you have dinner with me tomorrow night? Elena hesitated, and Julian saw something like fear flash in her eyes. Julian, you are incredibly sweet, and tonight has been wonderful. But we live in completely different worlds. You are a billionaire CEO, and I can barely keep my little gallery afloat. This was just one perfect night, but that is all it can be. What if I do not care about different worlds? Julian pressed. What if tonight proved that none of that matters? It does matter, Elena said sadly. Trust me, I have learned that lesson the hard way. People like me do not end up with people like you. Not in real life. Before Julian could argue further, Elena stood on her tiptoes and kissed his cheek softly. Thank you for the most beautiful evening of my life, she whispered. I will never forget dancing with you under the stars. Then she was gone. Walking quickly toward the parking area where her friend waited, Julian watched her burgundy dress disappear into the night, feeling like something precious had just slipped through his fingers. As he drove home to his empty penthouse, Julian replayed every moment of the evening. Elena's laugh, the way she felt in his arms, the genuine interest in her eyes when she talked to him. For 6 hours, he had forgotten about being a billionaire and remembered what it felt like to just be a man, he told himself. He would forget her in a few days. That this intense connection was just the result of wedding magic and champagne. But as he fell asleep that night, Julian knew he was lying to himself. Elena Martinez had changed something fundamental inside him, and there was no going back. What Julian did not know was that fate had much bigger plans for them both. Their story was just beginning. 3 weeks after the wedding, Elena Martinez stood in her small art gallery staring at the foreclosure notice taped to her front door. The morning sun streamed through the large windows, illuminating the paintings that covered every wall. This tiny space in downtown Atlanta had been her dream for 5 years. But now, it felt like everything was slipping away. The notice gave her 30 days to pay the outstanding rent or lose everything. $15,000. It might as well have been $15 million for all the chance she had of raising that much money. Elena sank into the old wooden chair behind her desk and put her head in her hands. Her gallery, Martinez Arts, specialized in showcasing unknown artists who could not afford the expensive galleries in the wealthy parts of town. She had discovered painters, sculptors, and photographers who created breathtaking work but had no platform to share it with the world. Elena took only a small commission from sales, believing that art should be accessible to everyone, not just the wealthy elite. Unfortunately, her generous heart had not translated into business success. Sales were slow, rent was high, and Elena had been using her own savings to keep the gallery afloat for months. Now those savings were gone. She was facing the end of everything she had worked for. The bell above the door chimed softly as someone entered. Elena quickly wiped her eyes and looked up to see Mrs. Chen, one of her regular visitors. The elderly woman came in every Tuesday to look at the paintings, though she had never purchased anything. "Good morning, dear," Mrs. Chen said warmly. "You look troubled today. Is everything all right?" Elena forced a smile. "Just some business challenges, Mrs. Chen. Nothing I cannot handle." The older woman walked slowly around the gallery, pausing in front of a vibrant painting of dancers in motion. "You know, this place brings me such joy. My late husband was an artist, though he never had the courage to show his work publicly. Seeing these young artists display their dreams reminds me of him. I am glad the gallery means something to you," Elena said sincerely. "That makes all the struggles worthwhile." Mrs. Chen turned to look at Elena with wise, knowing eyes. "Sometimes the most beautiful things in life require the most sacrifice to preserve them. Do not give up hope, dear. Help has a way of appearing when we need it most." After Mrs. Chen left, Elena returned to her paperwork, trying to figure out some impossible solution to her problems. She had already applied for loans at 3 different banks, but her lack of collateral and inconsistent income made her a poor candidate. She had even considered selling some of her own possessions, but they would not bring nearly enough money. The foundation meeting that afternoon, Elena received an unexpected phone call from the Sterling Foundation, one of the largest charitable organizations in Atlanta. They were accepting applications for emergency grants to support local arts organizations. And someone had recommended that Elena apply. Hope flickered in Elena's chest as she hung up the phone. The Sterling Foundation was known for supporting exactly the kind of work she was doing. If she could get even a portion of the grant money, it might be enough to save the gallery. 2 days later, Elena dressed in her best professional outfit and took the elevator to the 42nd floor of Sterling Tower. Her hands shook slightly as she clutched her portfolio containing photos of the gallery, artist statements, and financial records. This was her last chance. The foundation offices were elegant and intimidating. With floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, Elena gave her name to the receptionist and was directed to wait in a conference room. She practiced her presentation in her head, trying to calm her nerves. When the door opened, Elena looked up with a professional smile that immediately froze on her face. Standing in the doorway, looking just as shocked as she felt, was Julian Sterling. "Elena," he said, his voice filled with surprise and something else she could not identify. "Mr. Sterling," Elena replied formally, though her heart was racing. "I did not realize you would be personally reviewing grant applications." Julian entered the room and closed the door behind him. He looked incredible in his tailored charcoal suit, but his green eyes held the same warmth she remembered from the wedding. "I make it a point to personally review applications that come highly recommended. Though I had no idea the Elena Martinez on my schedule was you." Elena stood up straighter, trying to maintain her professional composure despite the way her pulse quickened when he was near. "I hope that will not affect your decision regarding my application." "Of course not," Julian said quickly. "Please, sit down. Tell me about your gallery." For the next hour, Elena presented her case with passionate professionalism. She showed Julian photos of the artists she had helped, explained her vision for making art accessible to everyone, and detailed exactly how the grant money would be used. Julian listened intently, asking thoughtful questions and taking careful notes. "Your work is impressive," Julian said when she finished. "These artists are incredibly talented. Why do you think other galleries have not recognized their potential?" Elena chose her words carefully. "Many established galleries focus on artists who are already successful or who can guarantee sales. They cannot afford to take risks on unknown talent. I believe that everyone deserves a chance to share their gift with the world, regardless of their background or connections." "That is a beautiful philosophy," Julian said sincerely. "How much funding are you requesting?" $25,000, Elena replied. $15,000 would cover the immediate crisis. The additional $10,000 would help with marketing and improvements to attract more visitors and sales. Julian made a note in his file. "I will review your application with the foundation board and have an answer for you within a week." As Elena packed up her materials, Julian walked around to her side of the table. "Elena, I hope you know that our personal connection will not influence this decision negatively. Your application will be judged solely on its merits." "I understand," Elena said, though she could not help but wonder if he was disappointed to discover her financial struggles. "Thank you for considering my request, the secret investigation." That evening, Julian could not concentrate on anything except Elena's grant application. He kept thinking about the passion in her voice when she talked about her artists. The way her eyes lit up when she described helping someone display their work for the first time. This was clearly more than just a business to her. It was her calling. Unable to resist, Julian drove downtown to see the gallery for himself. He parked across the street and studied the small storefront. Through the large windows, he could see the paintings Elena had shown him in photographs. Even from a distance, they were striking and powerful. Julian noticed the foreclosure notice on the door and felt his heart sink. Elena had not mentioned how desperate her situation really was. She was not just seeking growth funding. She was fighting for survival. The next day, Julian did something he had never done before. He visited the gallery anonymously, wearing casual clothes and sunglasses, pretending to be just another potential customer. He wanted to see Elena in her element, without the complications of their personal history. The gallery was everything Elena had described and more. The art was extraordinary, ranging from photorealistic portraits to abstract explosions of color. Each piece told a story, and together they created an atmosphere of creativity and hope. Julian understood immediately why Mrs. Chen and others found this place special. Elena was helping a young couple select a painting for their first apartment. She talked about the artist's background and inspiration with genuine enthusiasm, never pressuring them to buy, but clearly wanting them to find something that spoke to their hearts. When they finally chose a small landscape painting, Elena's joy was obvious. "Carlos will be so excited," she told them as she wrapped their purchase. "This is his first sale. You are giving him the confidence to continue pursuing his dreams." Julian watched this interaction from across the room, pretending to study a sculpture. Elena was not just selling art. She was changing lives, both for the artists she represented and for the people who took their work home. The complicated feelings over. The following days, Julian found himself thinking about Elena constantly. He researched her background and discovered that she had grown up in foster care, put herself through college with scholarships and part-time jobs, and had been running the gallery for 5 years with minimal profit. Everything she had told him at the wedding was true. She was genuinely passionate about helping others, not interested in personal gain. Julian also realized that Elena had no idea who he really was beyond his name and wealth. She did not know about his own difficult childhood, how he had built his company from nothing after his parents died in a car accident when he was 19. She did not know that he still felt like an outsider in wealthy social circles, that he often lay awake at night wondering if anyone would love him for who he was rather than what he owned. The night before the foundation board meeting, Julian made a decision that surprised even himself. He was going to recommend full funding for Elena's gallery, not because of their personal connection, but because her work genuinely deserves support. However, he wanted to do more than just give her money. He wanted to be part of what she was building. The board decision, the Martinez Arts application, is particularly interesting, Julian told the foundation board the next morning. Their approach to supporting emerging artists aligns perfectly with our mission of fostering creativity and opportunity in underserved communities. Board member Patricia Williams looked over the financial documents. Their revenue projections seem optimistic. "Are you confident this is a sound investment?" "I have personally visited the gallery," Julian replied. "The quality of work is exceptional, and there is clearly community support. With proper funding and marketing, I believe this organization has significant potential for growth and impact." After an hour of discussion, the board voted unanimously to approve the full $25,000 grant. Julian felt a mixture of professional satisfaction and personal relief. Elena would be able to save her gallery and continue the work she loved. The unexpected encounter, Julian decided to deliver the news personally. He arrived at the gallery just as Elena was closing for the day. She looked tired and worried, probably wondering if she would still have a business next week. "Julian," she said, surprised to see him standing outside her door. "What are you doing here?" "I have news about your grant application," he said. "May I come in?" Elena unlocked the door and let him inside. The gallery felt different in the evening light, more intimate and peaceful. Julian found himself looking around with new appreciation for what Elena had created. I am afraid to ask, Elena said nervously. Your expression does not give anything away. Julian smiled. The Sterling Foundation Board has approved your application for the full $25,000. Elena stared at him for a moment, as if she had not heard correctly. Then her face broke into the most beautiful smile Julian had ever seen. Are you serious? The full amount. Completely serious, Julian confirmed. The board was impressed with your work and your vision. The money will be transferred to your account within 48 hours. Elena laughed and spun around in a circle. Her joy infectious and pure. I cannot believe it. I was so scared that I was going to lose everything. This changes everything, Julian. Thank you so much. You earned this, Julian said firmly. Your application was approved based on merit, not personal connections. Elena stopped spinning and looked at him seriously. I know you could have influenced the decision if you wanted to. Thank you for treating me fairly, Elena, Julian said, taking a step closer to her. There's something else I need to tell you. The confession I have been thinking about you every day since the wedding, Julian admitted. I know you said we live in different worlds, but I cannot stop thinking about what we shared that night. It was real, Elena. At least it was for me. Elena's expression grew cautious. Julian, I told you why this cannot work between us. Nothing has changed. Everything has changed, Julian replied passionately. I have seen your gallery now. I understand what you do, what you care about. We are not as different as you think we are. We are exactly as different as I think we are, Elena said sadly. You just gave my organization $25,000 without blinking. That is more money than I make in a year. You live in a penthouse and drive cars that cost more than most people's houses. I shop at thrift stores and eat ramen noodles for dinner. Money does not define who we are, Julian argued. You have something I have been searching for my entire life. Passion, purpose, the ability to make a real difference in people's lives. I would trade all my wealth for what you have built here. Elena shook her head. You do not understand. I have been down this road before, Julian. I dated someone wealthy once, and it was a disaster. His family made it clear that I was not good enough. His friends treated me like an amusing novelty. I will not go through that again. I am not him, Julian said firmly. And my friends and family are not them. Maybe not, Elena conceded. But the world will still see us as a mismatch. The billionaire and the struggling gallery owner. I have worked too hard to build my reputation to become someone's charity case or arm. Candy. Julian felt frustration building in his chest. Is that really what you think I want? Some kind of charity case? I do not know what you want, Elena replied honestly. But I know what I want. I want to build something meaningful with someone who understands my world. Someone who will not overshadow everything I have worked for. The challenged Julian was quiet for a long moment, processing Elena's words. Finally, he looked at her with determination in his green eyes. What if I proved to you that we could work together as equals? He asked. What if I showed you that I understand your world better than you think? What do you mean? Elena asked cautiously. Give me a chance to be part of what you are building here, Julian proposed. Not as a donor or a patron, but as a partner. Let me help you expand the gallery, reach more artists, connect with more customers. Let me prove that I see you as an equal, not a charity case. Elena stared at him, clearly torn between hope and fear. Julian, I do not think that is a good idea. Why not? He pressed. You need help growing the business. I have experience in marketing, operations, and expansion. We could be an incredible team, because working together would make everything more complicated, Elena said. I cannot afford to let personal feelings interfere with business decisions. This gallery is too important. Then we keep it professional, Julian suggested. Business partners only. Nothing personal until you are ready to trust me. Elena walked over to one of her favorite paintings. A vibrant piece showing a woman reaching toward the sky. You really think you could work in my world? With struggling artists and limited budgets and secondhand furniture, I think I would love working in your world, Julian said sincerely. If you will let me try? Elena turned back to face him, her brown eyes searching his face for any sign of insincerity. What would your business associates think about you working with a small downtown gallery? I do not care what they think, Julian replied. I care what you think. After a long moment, Elena extended her hand toward him. Business partners only, she said firmly. If you can handle working without a secretary, without a company car, and definitely without special treatment, then we can try this. Julian shook her hand. Feeling electricity shoot up his arm at the contact? Business partners only, he agreed, though they both knew it would be much more complicated than that. As he left the gallery that night, Julian felt more excited about a project than he had in years. He was going to prove to Elena that love could bridge any gap between their worlds. But first, he had to prove that he could survive in hers. 2 weeks later, Julian Sterling stood in Martinez Arts wearing jeans and a simple button-down shirt instead of his usual expensive suits. His sleeves were rolled up, and his hands were dusty from moving paintings and rearranging display areas. Elena watched him from across the gallery, still amazed that the Billionaire CEO was actually here, working alongside her like any regular employee. Julian, can you help me hang this piece? Elena called out, struggling to position a large abstract painting on the wall. Coming, Julian replied, hurrying over to lift the heavy frame. Together, they maneuvered it into the perfect spot. How does that look? Elena stepped back to examine their work. Perfect. You are getting good at this gallery business. I have an excellent teacher, Julian said with a smile that made Elena's heart skip. Over the past 2 weeks, Julian had thrown himself into learning every aspect of running the gallery. He arrived early each morning and stayed late into the evening, helping with everything from inventory management to customer service. He had developed genuine relationships with several of the artists, offering business advice and marketing suggestions that helped increase their sales. Most surprisingly, Julian seemed to genuinely enjoy the work. Elena had expected him to get bored or frustrated with the slower pace and smaller scale compared to his technology empire. Instead, he appeared more relaxed and happy than she had ever seen him. Elena, said Carlos, one of their featured painters, as he arrived for the afternoon shift. Julian helped me set up an online portfolio last night. I already have 3 new commission requests this morning. That is wonderful. Carlos, Elena replied, though she felt a familiar pang of concern. Julian's involvement was clearly beneficial for the artists, but she worried about becoming too dependent on his resources and expertise. The growing attraction, despite their agreement to keep things strictly professional. The attraction between Julian and Elena grew stronger every day, working in close quarters, sharing meals, collaborating on projects. It was impossible to ignore the chemistry that had sparked between them at the wedding. Elena found herself watching Julian when he thought she was not looking. The way he listened intently to artists describing their work, his genuine interest in their stories and struggles, the way he could make customers feel comfortable and valued without being pushy about sales, the way he had adapted to her world with grace and humility. Julian was equally captivated by Elena in her element. Her passion for art and artists was infectious. She had an intuitive understanding of what each piece needed to shine, whether it was better lighting, a different frame, or simply the right customer to appreciate it. She treated every artist like family and every customer like a friend. You know? Julian said one evening as they closed up the gallery together. I have learned more about business in the past 2 weeks than I did in my last year of corporate meetings. What do you mean? Elena asked, turning off the display lights one by one. In my regular business, everything is about profit margins and market share, Julian explained. But here, success is measured differently. It is about connection, about matching people with art that speaks to them, about giving artists a platform to share their vision. It is more fulfilling than any quarterly report I have ever read. Elena felt warmth spread through her chest at his words. That is exactly why I do this. Money is nice, but changing lives is better. You have changed my life. What? Julian said quietly. Elena froze, her hand on the light switch. Julian, we agreed to keep things professional. I know, he replied, but that does not change how I feel about you. Before Elena could respond, her phone rang. It was her friend Maya calling about weekend plans. The moment passed, but the tension remained between them. The big opportunity 3 weeks into their partnership. Elena received a call that could change everything. Atlanta's most prestigious art collector, Mrs. Margaret Worthington, wanted to visit the gallery. Mrs. Worthington was known for discovering new talent and could make an artist's career with a single purchase. She was also notorious for her high standards and sharp tongue. "She is coming here? To our little gallery?" Carlos asked nervously when Elena shared the news. "Apparently someone recommended us to her," Elena replied, though she had no idea who that could be. "This is incredible," said Nina, their sculptor. "If Mrs. Worthington likes our work, it could get featured in all the major art publications." Elena felt excitement mixed with terror. This was exactly the kind of opportunity she had dreamed about, but it also felt too big, too important. What if Mrs. Worthington hated everything? What if they embarrassed themselves? "We need to make sure everything is perfect," Elena announced. "Fresh flowers, perfect lighting, our best pieces prominently displayed." Julian, who had been quietly listening to the conversation, stepped forward. "What if we hosted a special reception for her visit? Invite other collectors and art enthusiasts. Make it an event rather than just a casual gallery viewing." "That sounds expensive," Elena said cautiously. "I can handle the costs," Julian offered. "Catering, music, invitations, whatever we need." Elena shook her head firmly. "No, Julian. If we are going to do this, we do it ourselves. I will not have people thinking I succeed because my business partner paid for everything." "Then what do you suggest?" Julian asked patiently. Elena thought for a moment. "We keep it simple, but elegant. Cheese and wine, some background music, personal attention for each guest. We focus on the art, not expensive extras." "I love that idea," Julian said sincerely. "It fits perfectly with what this gallery represents. The night of the reception, the evening of Mrs. Worthington's visit, Martinez Arts was transformed. Elena and Julian had worked together to create the perfect atmosphere. Soft jazz music played in the background, candles provided warm lighting, and each artwork was positioned to maximum advantage. Elena wore a simple but elegant black dress that had cost her an entire month's grocery budget. Julian wore a dark suit, but had deliberately chosen a less expensive one. Not wanting to overshadow the gallery's modest aesthetic, "You look beautiful," Julian told Elena as they did a final check of the preparations. "You clean up pretty well yourself," Elena replied. Adjusting his tie slightly, the simple touch sent electricity through both of them. Mrs. Worthington arrived precisely on time. An elegant woman in her 70s with silver hair and sharp blue eyes. She was accompanied by several other collectors and art enthusiasts, creating exactly the kind of sophisticated crowd Elena had hoped for. "Ms. Martinez," Mrs. Worthington said after Elena introduced herself. "I have heard interesting things about your gallery. I understand you focus on emerging artists." "Yes, ma'am," Elena replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "We believe that everyone deserves a chance to share their talent with the world." Mrs. Worthington nodded approvingly. "An admirable philosophy. Shall we begin the tour?" For the next hour, Elena guided the group through the gallery, sharing the story behind each piece and artist. She was in her element, passionate and knowledgeable. Bringing each artwork to life with her descriptions, Julian stayed in the background, helping with refreshments and answering questions when needed, but always deferring to Elena's expertise. Watching her work was like watching a masterclass in art, curation, the moment of Truthmers. Worthington spent considerable time studying Nina's sculptures, asking detailed questions about technique and inspiration. She examined Carlos's paintings with a critical eye, nodding thoughtfully at several pieces. When she reached the final artwork, a stunning photograph by their newest artist, she paused for a long moment. "Remarkable," she said finally. "Who took this photograph?" "Jamie Williams," Elena replied. "They are a self-taught photographer who captures urban landscapes in a completely unique way. This piece shows the intersection of nature and city life." "I would like to purchase it," Mrs. Worthington announced. "And I want to commission Jamie for a series of photographs for my private collection." Elena felt her heart soar. This was exactly the kind of break Jamie needed to launch their career. But Mrs. Worthington was not finished. Ms. Martinez, I am also interested in representing several of your other artists in my gallery uptown. Would they be interested in a broader platform for their work? Elena could barely contain her excitement. I am sure they would be thrilled to discuss that opportunity. Excellent, Mrs. Worthington said. I will have my assistant contact you next week to arrange the details. She paused and looked around the gallery once more. You have created something special here, Ms. Martinez. This is exactly the kind of authentic, passionate curation that the art world needs more of. The celebration after the guests left. Elena and Julian found themselves alone in the gallery, surrounded by the evidence of their successful evening. Several pieces had sold. Multiple artists had received commissions, and most importantly, they had gained the respect and support of Atlanta's most influential art collector. We did it, Elena said, hardly believing what had just happened. We actually did it. You did it, Julian corrected. I just helped with the refreshments. Elena laughed, the stress and excitement of the evening finally catching up with her. Julian, none of this would have happened without your help. The business advice, the marketing strategies, the moral support, we make a pretty good team. The best team, Julian agreed. Moving closer to her, they stood in the center of the gallery, surrounded by the art they both loved, basking in the glow of their shared success. The professional barriers they had maintained for weeks suddenly felt unnecessary and artificial, Elena. Elena, Julian said softly, I need to tell you something. What? She asked, though she could see in his eyes what he was about to say. I am falling in love with you, he admitted. I know we agreed to keep things professional, but I cannot pretend anymore. Working with you, seeing your passion, watching you change lives every single day, it has made me realize that I want to spend my life supporting your dreams. Elena felt tears spring to her eyes. Julian, I am scared. Of what? He asked gently. Of losing myself in your world, she replied honestly. Of becoming someone I do not recognize. Of having people think I only succeeded because of your money and connections. Julian took her hands in his. Elena, look around this gallery. Look at what you've built before I ever showed up. Look at what you accomplished tonight. No one can take credit for your talent, your vision, your heart. You are not successful because of me. You are successful because you are extraordinary. What about the differences in our backgrounds? Elena asked. The money, the social circles, the expectations? What about them? Julian replied, I do not care about any of that. I care about you. I care about this gallery. I care about the life we could build together. The declaration Ella looked into Julian's green eyes and saw nothing but sincerity and love. She thought about the past weeks, watching him work beside her, seeing him genuinely care about the artists and their dreams. He had not tried to change her or her gallery. Instead, he had changed himself to fit into her world. Julian, she said softly, I have been falling in love with you too. I tried to fight it, tried to convince myself it was just attraction or gratitude. But watching you here, seeing who you really are, I cannot deny it anymore. Julian's face lit up with joy and relief. Really? Instead of answering with words, Elena stood on her tiptoes and kissed him. It was soft and sweet at first, then deeper and more passionate as weeks of suppressed feelings finally found expression. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard and smiling. So what happens now? Elena asked. Now we figure it out together, Julian replied. We build something amazing, both personally and professionally. We prove that love can bridge any gap. People are going to talk, Elena warned. They are going to say, I am only with you for your money. Let them talk, Julian said firmly. Anyone who knows you will see the truth. And anyone who does not know you does not matter. Elena smiled, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. You know, Mrs. Worthington asked me tonight how I had turned around the gallery so quickly. I told her I had found the perfect business partner. Just business partner? Julian asked with mock hurt. Well, Elena said with a mischievous grin. maybe a little more than that. The new beginning 6 months later. Martinez Arts had become one of Atlanta's most respected galleries. The partnership with Mrs. Worthington had led to features in national art magazines and visits from collectors across the country. 3 of their artists had been accepted into prestigious exhibitions, and 2 had been offered representation by major galleries in New York. Elena and Julian had moved into a beautiful apartment together, a space that perfectly blended his sophisticated taste with her artistic sensibility. They had faced some skepticism from Julian's business associates and some gossip in social circles, but their genuine love and mutual respect had won over most critics. Julian had also made significant changes to his business, incorporating more social responsibility and community outreach into Crosstech's mission. He spent 3 days a week at the gallery and 2 days at his corporate office, finding a balance that made him happier than he had ever been. "Elena," Julian said one evening as they walked through the gallery together, checking on a new installation. "Do you ever regret that night at the wedding? Meeting me? Getting involved in all this?" Elena stopped walking and turned to face him. "Julian Sterling, that was the luckiest night of my life. You saved my gallery, supported my dreams, and showed me what real partnership looks like. The only thing I regret is waiting so long to admit I loved you." "In that case," Julian said, dropping to one knee in the middle of the gallery surrounded by the art they both loved, "Elena Martinez, will you marry me?" Elena gasped, her hands flying to her mouth as Julian pulled out a simple but beautiful ring. "I know we come from different worlds," Julian continued, "but you have shown me that the best life is one where we support each other's dreams. I want to spend forever helping you change the world through art. Will you let me?" "Yes," Elena said through happy tears. "Yes, of course, yes," as Julian slipped the ring onto her finger and stood to kiss her. Elena thought about how much her life had changed since that wedding night. She had saved her gallery, grown her business, and found the love of her life. Most importantly, she had learned that different worlds could come together beautifully when 2 people truly supported and respected each other. Their story was proof that love could conquer any obstacle, bridge any gap, and create something more beautiful than either person could achieve alone. The lonely billionaire and the struggling gallery owner had found their happily ever after, surrounded by art, love, and endless possibilities for the future.